Hello and welcome to today's Bitrix24 webinar, Total Telephony. Okay, so thank you for joining today. And who are we? So we are Bitrix24 Gold Partners Interface. And my name is Sam Connor, a sales engineer here at Interface. So I'll be taking you through today's webinar. And we're based in the UK, in the US, and also in Dubai, and we offer a full range of services to help you with your Bitrix24 requirements, from pre-sale support to run through your requirements, and we can arrange a custom demonstration. We offer full implementation services to set up the system for you. We also offer hosting for the on-premise edition, and we can provide training and ongoing support to really help you get the most out of Bitrix24. Okay, so what is Bitrix24? If you're new to Bitrix and you're joining today to look at the telephony features, Bitrix24 is a collaboration suite of really well over 35 tools now to help you manage your business. And as I mentioned today, we'll be looking at the telephony features within the system. We do have more than 8 million customers now that use Bitrix24 around the world, and the system is available as a cloud but also a self-hosted solution. And prices start from $19 per month for a cloud system, and an on-premise edition is available from $1,490 as a lifetime license. Okay then, so today we'll be looking at the telephony features, and I guess a really important question is, why would you use Bitrix24 for your telephony requirements? And first of all, it has a built-in phone system, so it's very easy to set up very quickly through renting a number from Bitrix24, so you can then make calls and receive inbound calls directly in your Bitrix24 system. We also have the option to integrate with existing private branch exchanges and your own phone providers. So if you want to use your existing provider, we have the ability to integrate that into Bitrix24. Really useful feature is the ability to integrate this with the CRM module. So we can route calls and associate those to the correct contact, and those calls can then be recorded against that contact in the CRM. So you have full history of all of your calls, and it's very easy to find that information. You can report on the calls and the features in the system. So we'll have a look at the reporting features, where we can see the data of all of the calls that are taken in the system. And also, a really important feature and aspect is the low costs. So renting a number from Bitrix starts from around $4 to $6. So you have very limited actual cost to actually set up the telephony features in the system. And it's really important to understand the different options when it comes to telephony in Bitrix24. There are two different options. First of all, you have the Bitrix24 telephony option. This is where you rent a number directly from Bitrix24. And we'll go through that option first. So we'll see how we rent that number and then configure that number in the system. Then your second option is if you already have an existing number, or you're with a telephony provider that you don't want to move from, we can look to integrate that phone provider into Bitrix24. So those are your two different options when it comes to telephony in the system. And the first option we're going to look at today then is the Bitrix24 telephony. So we're going to look at how we can set up a number. We'll then look at the virtual phone system and how we can configure that number with different features. And we'll then see how we integrate this with the CRM system and using the mobile app to make those calls. And we'll also look at the reporting features available in the system. Okay then, so the first thing we need to do if we are going to be renting a number from Bitrix is here in just to mention, we're in the telephony module here. So this is what you see when you go into the telephony feature. Now, to access the telephony functionality, you do need to have a paid for commercial subscription. So if you're currently using a free cloud edition, you're not going to be able to do the functionality that we see today. You do need to upgrade to a commercial license. Okay. But the first option, as we mentioned, is the ability to rent a number. So within here, we have the rent a number area. So we can go into here and we can then rent a number from Bitrix24. And I say from Bitrix24, the provider behind that is Vox Implants, but it's renting a number from the Bitrix24 system here. So first of all, we can choose a country. So let's just go into here and select a country such as the USA. And I can then choose a type of number. So you might have different categories of numbers that you can select from based on that country. And then from here, I can choose the states. And then it drills me down to the specific region as well. So we can see here, so if I wanted a Miami number, I can see here I've gone down to the Miami region, and that's going to cost me $4 per month to rent that number. So that's just for the renting of the number. Inbound calls are included in that cost, and outbound calls, they will be charged at a rate per minute, and that depends on where your country is that you're calling. So here are those call rates. So I'll add this into the chat box shortly, so you can see all of the outbound call rates if you do rent a number from Bitrix24. And just to warn you, there are some countries here, if you are renting a number, you do need to prove some documentation. So for example, here, if we're going to rent a number, a German number, I do have to provide details to show that I am located within this country. So a valid address needs to be uploaded, otherwise this number could be disconnected. So it's just to warn you there. With some countries, you do need to provide physical address details to show that you are a resident or a location within that country. Okay, so that's one way. So we've set up that number, and we want to add some credit. So we've got a balance here, so we can then make those outbound calls using our Bitrix rented number. And once you've rented that number, we can then configure the settings for that number in the system. So we can see here, this is a number we've rented. We're paying $6 per month for the renting of this number. And I can then go into this number and we can configure the settings for this particular number in the system. So you can see here, there's different sections in this configuration. So currently we're looking at the inbound call routing. So we can configure and customize here where this inbound call will be routed to. So when we call this number, we can route that call to a specific maybe group of people, or based on certain features, it could go to a certain department. So within here, we can set up groups. So I can set up groups in here. So we might have a sales group, for example, and I can then add each user into this group who would be responsible then for dealing with this call if we select this group. So I can add a group into here. And when that call gets processed, if somebody answers, great. But if they can't answer that call, we can then choose an option here if we want to maybe forward it to the mobile, or let the customer leave a voicemail message. You can also set up, and I think this is a really useful feature, a voice menu. So this is your own IVR menu here. So this gives the customer the option to select from criteria to then have that call routed. So for example, here we've got an option. So if you select 1 on that voice menu, so when the user calls, it will say select number 1 for Max Smith. And then we're routing this. So in here, I'm then selecting that employee. So I might say option 2, and then I can select where that is going to go to. So quite a common one is you might have 1 for sales, 2 for support, 3 for account management, etc. So you can add your groups, and then say, for example, here, I might have a sales group. So all of my sales team are within that group. And if the customer selects option 2, it's going to then be routed to all of those people in the sales group so they can answer that sales inquiry. So this is a really useful way to channel all of those inbound calls. And it's very simple. So we just add all of our details into this text box here, and that will then get relayed to the customer when they make that call. And we can configure as well in here the language. So we've got lots of different languages we can choose, the speed as well of how that text is relayed to the customer, and also the volume there. So that's a really useful way to channel your inbound calls. And we've mentioned about the integration. So Bitrix24 Telephony is fully integratable with the CRM. So within the integration section here, we have the ability, if the number is not registered in the CRM, so if this number that calls in, it's not recognized as against a contact, we could automatically create a brand new lead in the CRM that we can then start progressing. And we can see here, we go through here and we can record those calls. So we can turn on the feature here to have calls recorded, and those will then be recorded against the contact in the CRM system and in our recordings folder. And you can also play a warning message. So on those inbound calls, you can play that warning message to just let the customer know that the call will be recorded. And then on outbound calls, you can warn them about that call being recorded in the system. We do get asked this quite a lot as well. So there is a transcribing facility as well. So if you want your calls to be actually documented and transcribed, this is an additional paid for service. So this is on top of any other telephony costs. So there's more information about this here, and that's an additional service that you have. And you can also have the ability to assess quality of service. So you can offer the customer a chance to assess the quality of service after the call with a call rating there. Okay, we can also turn on working hours as well. So within here, you might have certain timeframes when you can answer those calls. So in here, you can set up your time of working, and also you can upload your own recorded message for an out of hours process there. Or we could also have a call forwarded to another number as an out of hours option. Okay, so that's how we can then configure our rented number or any number in the system that's been integrated, but we're currently looking at the renting of a number. So we've seen how we can set those settings and set the call recording in the system as well. And what we can then do is set permissions. Who can actually access, for example, the call recordings in the system. And this is done by setting roles. So in here, we can see on the right-hand side, we've got different roles that we are assigning. So in here, for example, I can see our administrator role. And I can go into this role, and then I can configure the settings for that specific role. So for example, call recordings, I might deny all access. But this is the administrator role, so they are going to have full access to the call recordings. I might say for outbound calls, they can execute that only on CRM clients, so only on contacts that are in the CRM system, or they could just add a number into here and then call even if that's not associated to a contact. And in terms of updating settings as well. So you can configure these settings here for every role in the system. And then once you have that role, you can then assign it to different users. So in here, I can go through and select our users. So I'm going to say Mary is an administrator role. So that she now has that permission structure that we have just created to the administrator role in the telephony module. Okay, so that's then how we can access the permissions in the system. And those permissions there, they can then grant you access to this call details area. And this will give us all of the data for all of our inbound and outbound calls in the system. So it gives you all of this information. So I can see the employee, the number, when the call was managed, if it was an inbound or outbound call. And if those calls are successful, we can filter through all of this information. So I might want to look at basically all of the calls that were actually successful and those that were answered. So I can see all of those in the system here. If the call's also recorded, you'll be able to see the recording in here. So I might want to see all of those that are actually recorded in the system. So I can then play those calls back directly in the system here. And all of this information, you can export this data as well. So if I wanted to create a specific filter, I could then export this information out of Bitrix24. Okay, so that's looking at some of the call details in the system. And we mentioned there in the configuration settings how we can integrate this system with the CRM module. So Bitrix24 Telephony, it is fully integrated with the CRM. So let's just go now into the CRM area and have a look at the telephony integration. Okay, so we've just gone into our CRM area and we're in our contact database. And what we're going to do now is going to have a look at what this looks like when one of our contacts calls into the system and calls that rented number that we have. So we can see here Mark Moon, and we're going to see what this looks like when Mark calls into the system calling that rented number. And what you'll see is it will pop up in a pop-up screen. And as we say, we can route those calls to responsible people or to a group of people in the system. Okay, so we've just seen Mark's now calling in. That's popped up in a display, and I can see all of the information. So I can see the contact, the details, any recent deals they're associated with, and then I can answer that call directly in the Bitrix system here. And I can also transfer this to another user or add a comment. So you can decide exactly what you want to do with this call. And those calls, if we've set the settings correctly, we can then record those calls and they will be recorded in the contacts page. So if we just go into Mark Moon's page, we'll see that we have some call recordings in the contact page itself. Okay, so we can see here in Mark's page, we've got some incoming calls here, so we can see that activity has been saved in the system. You can see some call recordings that have already taken place here in the contact page.
We can forward, so using this,
so you can then play those calls back. You can see who is responsible for those calls. So you can see all of that information inside the contacts page. And within this page itself, I can do a click to call. So I could call Mark directly from the contact page. So that's a very easy way then to call, and I can see all of the information and details about the contact here. I might want to add some notes after the call. So that can all be added into the contact page as well. So all of that is then saved in that contact page, so you don't have to go to different areas to see all of this information. It's all saved within the one contact area of the system. So it's really useful to find all of that key information about each of your contacts. Now we can also create call lists. So within this contact area, we might want to, maybe we're filtering on certain contact types, so we can create custom fields. So I might want to see all of our clients. And then I might want to just call this group of people. So I can then click and select those contacts, and I can then start to select my action. So in here, I could just start dialing, and this will then automatically start dialing through those specific contact lists that I have just created. So I can call through here, and once that's done, I can then go to my next call. I might reschedule this, say for another 15 minutes, and I'll come back to this, and so on. So you can create your own calling lists in the CRM system. And this actually also integrates with the marketing system as well. So once we've finished on this CRM section, we'll go into the marketing area and have a look at that in some more detail. So the next area within the CRM that telephony integrates is within leads and in deals. So we can run automatic telephony functionality in the stages of our leads and deals. So we won't go into too much detail about the setup of the CRM. We'll do that in our CRM webinar. But as a top level within the CRM here in leads, we have different stages that we progress a lead through to try and qualify that lead. And those stages are fully customizable. So you could have as many or as few stages as you require. You can change the name and colors of those leads. So it's customizable to your specific lead process. And it's exactly the same for the deal section. And the deal section is where we're going to close that sales opportunity. Now we do have the ability in here to actually automate some telephony features. So for example, at maybe the first call stage, I could add a client communication, such as a robocall. So what will happen here is we can add a message into here, and at that specific stage, when the lead hits that stage, we're then going to send out this automated voice message to the customer. So what you do here is you add your message, and this is dynamic as well. So in here, I can then populate this with the name of the lead, for example, and we can then add the rest of our message into here. And again, just like with the IVR menu, we can then choose the language that this message gets relayed. We can also select the speed and the volume that this will get relayed. And we can also choose when this runs. So if I select immediately, as soon as the lead hits this first call stage, we're going to automatically send this robocall out to them immediately. So you can customize exactly when this automation is run in the system. So we might say, actually, let's say it's going to happen in 1 day after we progress the lead to that first call stage. So for that robocall, what will happen is the contact will receive a call, just like you would answer a call normally. And when they answer that call, this message will then get relayed to the customer. So it's quite a good way to have as a call to action in the system. So I'm going to save that there so we can then see it saved as a robocall at the first call stage. And you can set those up throughout your lead process. But we also have triggers. So rather than automation at that stage, we can actually create triggers. So for example, if in here we have maybe an incoming call from that lead, we could then automatically, because they've made an incoming call to us, we can automatically update the stage of that lead. So for example, it may be now they're interested, so we might update them to the looking good stage. So we could create that trigger at the looking good stage. So if there's an incoming call from that lead, we're then going to automatically update the stage of that lead to looking good. So we can then automatically update the stage there. So that's how we can integrate telephony features into leads and deals using automation and triggers. But now we also have the ability to use the marketing module to integrate our telephony requirements as well. So in the telephony section, very similar in the sense of the functionality, in the marketing area here, we have voice broadcasting and audio calls. So what you can do is, if we go to the voice broadcasting, there's lots of different templates you can select from. And this is very similar really to that robocall. So I can add my message into here. And again, we've got the dynamic text ability in here. And I can then add my message, and rather than maybe going out to all of your contacts, we could choose a specific segment. So in here, I might want to choose up from our contacts. I might say this is going to all of our clients, for example, or it could be based on the stage of a deal that they're in. So you can create custom segment lists. So you could send out this marketing campaign here, so this particular voice broadcasting to a specific segment of people. And you can also do audio calling. So this is where you upload a recorded message, and we can then send this out to, again, it could go to all of your contacts in the CRM. It's more of a blast marketing piece. or again, we can create specific segments. So you can send out very targeted audio call marketing. Okay, so that's a look there at the marketing module. So we can create our very own voice broadcasting calls and also audio calls in the system. Now, again, with the marketing module, you do need to have a paid for subscription. You won't be able to access the marketing system without having a paid license. Okay, so that's just something to bear in mind if this is some functionality that you may want to come to in the future. But now let's just have a look at the mobile application as well. So we've mentioned how we can use the mobile app to manage calls as well. So let's just have a look at the mobile app. Okay, so let's just now have a look at the mobile app. So here we can see the mobile application. So this is the Bitrix mobile app if you're new to this. So we can go into here and see all of our contacts in the CRM system. You can answer your calls directly from this page. So if you had a call coming in, you could answer it on the Bitrix system like we saw, or you can route those calls to the mobile app. And I can then also call directly from this page. So I can use the Bitrix telephony feature and I can call directly from this page. And all those calls can be recorded in the system. So we can see here using the mobile app as well how the telephony features integrate into the mobile device as well. So this is a really useful feature. If you're out of the office, you can use the mobile app to manage your telephony requirements as well. Okay, so that's a quick look there at the mobile application. And let's just see now if we do have any questions at all. So that's looking at Bitrix24 telephony features there. Okay, question, how can I integrate my own number in the system? So we're going to actually move on to that now. So we've just looked at the Bitrix24 telephony. The next step is to actually look at how we could integrate with an existing phone provider and our own existing numbers. So that's really the second option. If you're renting a number from Bitrix, you have to stick with that particular number that you have rented. You can't then configure that number. Okay. Okay, how can you leave a pre-recorded voicemail if no one picks up the call? So I believe would that be on an outbound call? So I don't know if would you use the robocall functionality where you can just relay a message to the customer? You can upload a recorded call. If you're making an outbound call, I guess you would have to leave a voicemail message once that call has not been answered. Or you could then use that marketing functionality to either send an audio recorded message to all of those contacts, for example. Okay, so please do put any other questions in the comments box and we can run through those. But now we're going to look at the second option. So we've mentioned about Bitrix24 rented numbers. That's the first option. The second option is to actually integrate with an existing phone provider. And people say, really, why would you use the integration piece? And it may be that you have a group of people who use the CRM system within your business, maybe your sales team. So it would make sense that they continue using their existing phone network and integration pieces. So we can integrate that number into Bitrix. And it could be that your phone system that you currently use, it already has some specific features and functionalities that you want to keep. So that's another reason why we would integrate that into Bitrix. And it may also be that you've negotiated a very good call package with your phone provider and you want to continue with that billing arrangement. So again, that's another reason why you would integrate that into Bitrix24 to then take advantage of the features and configuration settings within the Bitrix system. Okay, so the first section to look at here then is, we just go back to our system, is to integrate with the SIP phones. So one option we have is to connect with a SIP phone. So this is also known as a VoIP or a USB phone. So SIP phones plug in and go. So you can make and receive calls from your desktop phone and then transfer using the built-in Bitrix phone system. So there's information in here about how you can set up with the SIP phones in the system. And then really the next area to look at is the actual integration with one of the ready-made applications. So within Bitrix, we have 72 integrations with different phone providers that are ready to be integrated with your existing package. So this is really useful if you, for example, you do already have an existing provider here. So for example, maybe Ring Central, you already have a contract with them. So you can use this integration here to then feed those calls into Bitrix24. I think one that we recommend quite a lot is 3CX. So if you don't have a phone system at the moment, we can provide a full system. So the virtual exchange and the PBX for 3CX, and that will cost around $750. But if you can find your phone provider in here, then you could use this integration and integrate so you can make calls and receive calls directly in the system. But one thing I would just say with any of these applications, do just check to make sure that the plan that you have with the phone provider will allow you to use this integration. So for example, on Ring Central, the install is free, but you need to make sure you've got premium or enterprise Ring Central plan. And that's quite similar on a lot of these different phone providers. You need to have a certain type of application plan with that phone provider to use the integration. So that's something to bear in mind before you do the full integration here. And then really the third option there, so we've mentioned about the apps, we can then also connect using the SIP connector. So if your phone provider is not one that we integrate with, for example, if you have an Office or a Cloud PBX, or if you can provide the SIP trunk, you can keep your existing phone numbers and get access to all of the Bitrix24 telephony and the CRM features by connecting. So for example, if you have a Cloud PBX, we can select the Cloud PBX function there. And what we would first need to do is connect. So we would add your credentials in here, the server address, the password, and the login details to connect. And you would then need to purchase the SIP connector. And the SIP connector will cost $49 per month. And that's as a one-off SIP connector charge. It's not per number or per user. It's one overall charge for your Bitrix24 account. And you can then feed in as many numbers into here as you like. And again, the calls that will be with the contract that you have with your existing phone provider. Okay, so just to bear in mind, that would be a $49 charge if you were to use the SIP connector. Okay, so that's the ability there to integrate with either an existing phone provider application or using the Office or Cloud PBX to integrate with your private branch exchange. That's the other option really, apart from the renting of a Bitrix24 number. And we've not spoken about it, but I guess there is one other option for you. If none of those options work, we do have the Bitrix24 API. You would need an on-premise edition to manage this. But if integration isn't achievable with any of these features here that we've looked at, it could be possible to use the Bitrix API to actually develop your own custom integration with your phone system. And just to bear in mind, the cost really would be in the region of $15,000 to $20,000 to build a custom development piece of work like this. So, I mean, for large businesses, that's probably not too substantial, and for the functionality you would gain, it's a very low cost alternative. So just to bear in mind, that is really the other option. If you can't use any of the features here, there is the option there to use the API to build a custom development with your phone system. Okay, let's just go back through any other questions here. Okay, yeah, so can I make a call with any contact in the CRM? So you can make a call, so just like we saw with Mark Moon, where we made that call in the system, what you need to make sure is that you do have a number for that contact. Otherwise, Bitrix can't look up that person in the system to recognize what number they're using. So yes, if we go back, for example, into Mark Moon or any contact that you have in the system, you just need to make sure you have a phone number in the phone field here, and you can then make those calls directly from the page. Now, it could be you've got a brand new number in the system. You also have the ability here at the bottom, you can make a call, and this will open up the page, and you can then start typing out or dialing that number in the system, and you can then make that call directly from the call option box here as well. Okay, so just now to move on to the costs. So we mentioned about renting a number from Bitrix24. That would be around $4 to $6 per month. And inbound calls are free of charge, and outbound calls, those are charged at those rates that we have just looked at here. So outbound calls are charged here at this price. So I'll add this into the chat window if you are interested in this. There we go. Okay, so I've just added that into the chat box for you all. So that's the cost if you're going to be actually renting a number and those outbound calls. You've also got the SIP connector charge if you're going to be integrating your own existing private branch. So the SIP connector would cost $49 per month. And any integration, so again, you need to check if one of the apps, such as Ring Central, if you can integrate that. I believe all of the apps are free, but you need to make sure you have a certain type of package with that phone provider to be able to access that application. Okay, so in summary, we've looked at the virtual phone system in Bitrix24, how we can configure our numbers so to allow for CRM integration, for call routing and call recording. We can integrate all of those calls directly into the CRM, so we can record those calls in the contact page, and we can also use the click to call feature to dial straight out from the system. And we can use the automation in the CRM to send out robocalls directly at a stage of our sales process. We've looked as well at the call reporting, so we saw how we can filter through our different call criteria to find certain calls, and that information can be exported into Excel. And we've also mentioned about the low setup costs there. So in terms of telephony, renting a number from Bitrix starts from just $4 to $6 per month. It's a very low cost alternative to many other solutions. So if this is a feature you're interested in, it doesn't cost much to set up your own telephony functionality in Bitrix24. Okay, and coming soon, you can see here several future webinars that we will be going through with you, such as self-hosted advantages and perfect project management. If there are any other questions in the meantime, if you'd like to speak with us, please do email sales@interface.com and we'll be happy to set up a call with you. But thank you for your time today. I hope you found the Total Telephony webinar interesting and useful, and hopefully speak to you all soon on the next webinar.